I've driven America's highways for over 30 years, logged more than 3 million miles across 47 states, seen blizzards in Montana that turned noon into midnight, crossed the Nevada desert in August heat that buckled the asphalt under my tires, driven through the kind of silence that only exists at 4 in the morning in the middle of nowhere, when you're the only moving thing for 50 miles in any direction. But what happened on that empty road at 2:43 in the morning on a stretch of West Texas highway I'd driven 100 times before is something I still refuse to fully explain, because the explanations I've come up with scare me more than the night itself. Before we get into it, tell me in the comments, have you ever felt like something was following you on a lonely road at night? Not paranoia, not tiredness, that deep animal feeling that you are being watched by something that has already decided what it wants to do. Leave it in the comments and subscribe for more true horror stories every week. Because what I'm about to tell you, this is not a story I share lightly. My name is Dale Murchison, 55 years old, retired now, bad hip, doctor's orders, 3 years off the road, and some days I miss it like a missing limb. The rhythm of it, the freedom, just you and the white lines in 1,000 miles of American darkness. I started driving commercially at 22. Flatbeds, refrigerated units, dry vans, oversized loads. Did a decade of overnight runs just because I preferred the roads empty. No construction slowdowns, no aggressive commuters, no distractions. Just the highway and the radio and the honest quiet of a country that looks completely different at 3 in the morning than it does at noon. My wife Linda used to say I was more comfortable on the road than in our own living room. She wasn't wrong. The cab of a truck was the place I understood best. I knew its sounds, its smells, its moods. I trusted it. That trust is part of what made that October night so disorienting, because the road stopped behaving like a road. It was a Thursday, late October, about 4 years ago. I was doing a solo overnight run, dry goods, nothing exotic, from Midland to El Paso on I-20 West, cutting south on Highway 385 through Fort Stockton. About 6 hours of driving in the dark through some of the emptiest land in the continental United States. I'd done this exact run 19 times. I know that because I kept a paper logbook even after the company switched to electronic. Old habit. 19 times. Same road, same darkness, same occasional cluster of lights from a passing town that blinked out in the rear view before you'd finished noticing it. The night was clear when I started. A sky so full of stars it looked fake. The way it gets out in the Trans-Pecos where there's no light pollution for 100 miles. Temperature dropping fast, maybe 45 degrees. A thin crescent moon sitting low on the horizon. Everything felt normal until around 2:30 in the morning. That's when the fog came. Not weather fog. Not the kind that rolls in off water or collects in low valleys. This was flat, ground level, and it arrived fast, too fast, like someone had pulled a curtain across the highway. Within 5 minutes, I couldn't see more than 30 feet ahead of my hood. I slowed down, clicked on the fog lights, turned the radio down out of habit, that thing people do, like silence helps you see better. Maybe it does. Maybe your brain needs the quiet. The first sign I passed didn't register immediately. It was one of those old brown highway historical markers. You see them all over rural Texas. Little brown signs noting where a battle happened or where a town used to be. I'd passed dozens of them on this stretch without ever stopping. But this one, in the sweep of my headlights, read, population 0. Founded 1931. Abandoned 1962. No town name, just those 3 lines. I told myself it was vandalism. Kids with a stencil and a can of spray paint. I kept driving. 2 miles later, my GPS made a sound I'd never heard it make. Not a recalculation chime, more like a skip. The sound of an old cassette tape dragging. The screen flickered, showed a road that wasn't on any map I recognized, then went dark. I had paper maps in the door pocket. I always carried paper maps. I kept driving and tried not to think too hard about the fact that the road beneath me felt subtly wrong. Not the surface. The surface was fine, but the angle of it. Like the road was curving in a direction it hadn't been curving before. And then I saw the exit. There are no exits on this stretch of 385. I know that. It's open range highway. No interchanges. No off-ramps. Just the occasional ranch road crossing at grade. But there it was. A proper elevated exit ramp, lit by a single amber light with a green sign overhead that I couldn't read fast enough before I'd already taken it. I don't know why I took it. That's the part I've never been able to explain to Linda or to anyone else. I didn't decide to take it. I was just suddenly on the ramp, the truck committed, the highway dropping away below me in the fog. The ramp led to a 2-lane blacktop heading north, and about a quarter-mile down that road, I saw the gas station. It was the kind of place that stopped existing 30 years ago. A single canopy over 2 old pump islands, the tall, boxy kind from the 70s. A cinder block building with a hand-painted sign that had faded to near nothing. 2 of the 3 fluorescent lights under the canopy were dead. The third was doing that slow, arrhythmic flicker that makes your eyes ache. And there was a car parked next to the building. A white sedan, maybe a late 80s model. The trunk slightly open. No one visible inside. No one standing next to it. The engine running. I could see the exhaust pluming in the cold air. I pulled in. I don't know why I did that either. Professional instinct, maybe. If a vehicle is running and empty in an isolated place in the middle of the night, you check. That's what 30 years on the road teaches you. I stepped down from the cab and immediately felt it. The silence was wrong. Not peaceful quiet, pressurized quiet. Like the moment before a storm, when the birds stop and the air gets heavy and everything living holds its breath. Hello? I called out. The fluorescent light flickered twice and held steady for a moment, just long enough that I could see into the window of the cinder block building. There was someone standing inside, right at the glass, still as furniture. I couldn't make out a face. The angle of the light was wrong, and the fog had followed me off the highway and was drifting through the canopy in slow threads. But the figure was tall, arms at its sides, just standing there at that window at 2:43 in the morning, in a gas station that looked like it had been closed since Reagan was president. I said, "You need help?" No answer. "Sir? Ma'am? You all right in there?" Nothing. Not a sound, not a movement. But then, and this is the part that emptied me out, I heard my name. Not shouted, not called, said, quietly, from somewhere behind me. Closer than the road, closer than the car. Close enough to be a few feet away. Just my name. My full name. The one on my commercial license. The one my mother used. I turned around. The fog was there. Just the fog. I went back to my truck. I will not dress that up as bravery. I walked fast, keeping my eyes moving, and I climbed into the cab and I locked both doors. My hands were shaking, and I am not a man whose hands shake. I started pulling forward, headlights sweeping the pump island. In the cone of light, I caught it for just a second. The figure was outside now, standing between the 2 pumps, not moving. That same tall, still posture. The fog was doing the same thing I'd noticed in the gas station window, staying away from it, keeping a clean border around it, the way water parts around a stone. And it was facing the car, not me, the white sedan, like it had been waiting there for whoever was in that car, or whatever was in that car was waiting for me to leave before it came back. I don't know which thought was worse. I left, fast, back up the ramp, back onto 385 South, and I did not stop until the lights of Fort Stockton appeared ahead of me like a signal from the living world. I pulled into a pilot station there, sat in a booth inside, and drank bad coffee and tried to organize my thoughts into something I could report to someone. I called the Pecos County Sheriff's non-emergency line, told them what I'd seen, a running car, a possible person in distress, the location as best I could describe it. The dispatcher paused. Then she said, "Sir, there are no exits on that stretch of 385, not for 40 miles in either direction." I finished the run, made my delivery, drove home to Odessa, and sat at my kitchen table while Linda slept, and I tried to write down everything I remembered before it could blur or soften the way memories do. I still have that paper, 3 pages of my handwriting, the letters getting smaller and tighter as I went on, the way your handwriting does when you're trying to fit something enormous into normal-sized words. I've been back on that highway twice since I retired. Once with Linda, driving to visit her sister in El Paso in broad daylight. I watched the mileage markers. I counted the ranch road crossings. There is no exit ramp. There is no gas station. There is nothing on that stretch of highway but open range, dark sky, and the kind of emptiness that West Texas does better than anywhere else on earth. I don't know what I drove into that night. I've considered every rational explanation: sleep deprivation, micro-sleep, some kind of dissociative episode brought on by too many hours behind the wheel. The doctor I told it to said the brain can construct elaborate false environments when it's severely fatigued. Maybe that's true, but I was not fatigued that night. I was 6 hours into a familiar run on a cold, clear evening. I had coffee in my system and 30 years of discipline keeping me sharp, and my logbook shows I made my delivery window with 40 minutes to spare, which means whatever happened on that exit ramp, it didn't cost me the time a dream would have. And Linda says I woke her up at 3:17 that morning with a phone call. I don't remember making it, but she says I was crying, and that the only thing I said to her before I hung up was, "Don't let anyone answer the door tonight." She never told me that until a year later. She said she was afraid to. If you enjoyed this late-night highway horror story, subscribe for more disturbing true stories every week. And if you're driving alone tonight, if you're on some empty highway in the dark with the radio low and the fog rolling in off the fields, don't take the wrong exit.